Checkout tracking by the NPD Group brings you a receipt collecting system that gathers data anonymously through technology we created, providing your businesses with answers.
Kick it off.
Yeah. Hi, so the presentation is about one button to click and you're in VR with Unity. It's really simple. So the benefit of listening to this presentation is if you made already Unity games or VR games, how can you bring them to VR? Some advice and design advice. But before I continue, I always want to get to know you a little bit better. Who has already made VR games? Okay, and who has already worked with Unity, used Unity? Okay, and who is not a programmer or designer? Okay, okay. So really mixed audiences. I will try to please everybody. Okay, so as I said, I'm Callewaert. I work at Unity Technologies. We are a company who makes a game engine that allows you to push your games you made to all different platforms. And currently we support more than 20 platforms. And let me give you a quick overview of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk a little bit about if you want to make a VR game, Unity 4.6 and then 5, what the differences are, what the benefits are from each other are, but some also technical advice when it comes down to optimization. But my passion is the design background. Why? As I said, to Unity, our passion is about solving hard problems. So we want to make it easier for you, so you don't have to go in the draw call optimization or vertex optimization, as long as you understand it, but you don't have to dig into it to fix it. And I have one slide on the monetization. Originally, I was asked to give a talk on best practice on monetization of VR games. Well, there's no examples out there. There's no market yet, so I can give a little bit of advice on that. Okay. But first of all, with Unity, we have very close partnerships with such as Oculus, Samsung, Sony, Qualcomm, and Microsoft. We have a partnership that we work together on creating the backend code, really optimization. We have ongoing teams working on optimization. And if you go to our website and you check out the jobs, you will see there's more than 200 job openings, and there's a lot of job openings on optimization. So we really put a focus on that. Who has tried already the HoloLens here? Okay, it's a phenomenal experience. Luckily I had it. It blows my mind. Okay, who has tried the Morpheus already? Okay. For me, it was the great thing was that during the demo is you put on your glasses or how you call it, but you look at the controller and you see the controller you have in your hands, but wholly pimped out, like it's totally like in steroids. And that was for me like, wow. I look at it, but I don't really see it, but I see it like really awesome. Okay. But we have also partners who belong to our ecosystem who support us and use Unity to bring their product to the community and their community, such as Meta and HTC Vive. Okay. I'm going to talk quickly about the setup first of all in Unity. How does it work? First of all, especially with Oculus, you have the software installed. You can take a picture or you can email me for the slides. But you have to have the Oculus installed, the SDK, you have the runtime installed, and you have the Unity 4.5 installed or later. Okay, so the big difference is in Unity 4.5, you had to get the Pro version. In 4.6, it became the free version. In Unity 5, it's totally fully supported, and all the optimization is also supported totally for free. So I encourage you, that's why, to update to Unity 5. And the Gear VR, that has a lot more things you have to install. It's a little bit annoying in the beginning, and you're going to spend like an hour installing all those little things. The SDK, of course, but also the drivers, and then they have to set up a certificate file. It's a little bit boring, so what I did, I asked one of my coworkers to install it for me. Okay, a little bit lazy. Okay, but when you start to think about between those two different devices, there's a huge differences. The Samsung Gear VR, for instance, when you buy the device plus the hardware, it comes easily to $1,000. So that makes already the beginning a difference. But also then you look at screen resolution, frame rate. That becomes difficult when you want to make a game that works on the multi-platform. As Unity always say, multi-platform is our core soul, and we want to make it one time and you distribute to all the different platforms. That makes it a little bit difficult And that's why we started to think, what we're going to have to do all. So when we started to work in Unity 4.6 on it, or philosophy is we want to do the hard work so you can focus on making the games. And that's why we started right away with asset store packages or standard packages. Packages you can drag and drop in Unity in our software to make it easy, such as a first person, a camera controller. You don't have to create it, don't have to create the scripts, do the 2D the rendering of the left eye and the right eye. And it was actually a lot of work. If you download the SDK from Oculus, or the Samsung Gear VR SDK, there you're going to find and look in the folders and you're going to find right away examples. Open those examples and it's nicely set up. Remove all the rest and then you can put your own content in there, so you don't have to do it all. Okay. When you look at the Samsung Gear VR, it comes with an OVR player. That means it's a first-person player. You drag and drop the prefab in Unity, and automatically you can use the touch VR pad and walk around. It's a Bluetooth controller. From a personal reason, I find it very sad you have to buy it separately. In the past, when you go to the store, you can go to Best Buy, you bought the Gear VR and you had the pad controller with it. No, it's a separate purchases. It's like Apple selling their connectors. Okay. So once you have that, then in Unity automatically you're going to see your left eye and your right eye rendering, and that's set up. But personally, this is very disturbing because you don't see any more your gameplay, and that's what we're going to fix later. We fix it then. But also you have a camera controller. So what's the difference between a camera controller and a first-person controller? The first-person controller is a camera where you can walk around automatically, drag and drop, and you can walk left and right, jump. The camera controller is a camera that stands still. Okay, but automatically gives you the ability that it renders the left eye and the right eye. Okay, it's really cool because you can actually drag and drop that camera on the rail. Like say you're going to move the camera forwards. Okay, but here's my advice: when you do first person versus on the rail, you should always be able to control the speed. And we're going to talk later about that, because if you don't control the speed, if your players don't control the speed, they can be nauseated very fast. Now in Unity 5.1, that's where we totally changed it. The only thing you have to do is install the SDKs and then just click a button. Okay, let me show you the button. Okay. So you have Unity here, this project, and then you can show file build settings, player settings, and the only thing you have to do is click this button here. Virtual reality supported. You click that. What is the core differences? There's no more package to be imported. They don't have to bring in a first person. You don't have to bring in a camera. The only thing you do is just the camera you have already. Click supported and automatically will generate your left eye and your right eye for you. That's it. Now what's really beautiful about that is that it's automatically supported for all our different platforms that we support. You don't have to create another prefab for Oculus, another prefab for the Gear VR. And any other platform that has been added on there, like the Oculus, automatically is supported for that all. So pretty awesome. Just a button, you make a game. Even when you made a previous game, the only thing you have to do is click, and it's done. Cool, huh? You can say yes. So you click build, and that works. No, it's not only this we did. There's a lot of other things we did in there. We added a lot of device classes. And one of those device classes was actually a mirror API. What does that mean? As I showed you on the screen, you saw your two left eye and the right eye. You don't see that anymore. In Unity 5, you see just hold the game. You can focus that. But at the same time, it still renders a left eye and a right eye on your device itself. And it's way better for working in the design. Also, get the eye positioning. Well, for instance, if you work with HoloLens, you can put in the distance between the left eye and the right eye so that you can put that position correctly in the device itself. As you know, if your projection of your eye is a little bit off on the left eye and the right eye, your brain goes in over mode. And it tries to process what's going on. And that's why we see there's a lot of VR experience, what we say as advice, keep it to 15 minutes, 10 minutes, because it's not optimized for your eyes yet. Another thing was the is attached. So you can see as a programmer, you can see if it's attached, is the device attached or not, the head tracking and the things. What we also did is a huge optimization backend. And there's two things I want to point out on optimization, but there's a lot of things on the backend. One of them is the culling. So normally you render the culling in one eye and the culling in the right eye. So I mean the custom culling and the occlusion culling. Right now it's only rendered in one eye and automatically copied to the right eye. So huge on performance. Shadows. If you are a technical person, then you know right away when you hear real-time shadows, you get a heart attack. Whoa, whoa, this cost very costly because you're going to render 2 times. Who invented that? What we did in the optimization, the backend is really render 1 time the shadow and basically copy that information over to the other eye. So if you start to combine that as an optimization, this is huge improvements you have. Now, when you talk about optimization, we actually talk about technical advice. Okay. Any game developer who talks about the first thing of advice is on VR experience, the first thing is optimization, 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 optimization. And there's a reason why. I'm going to come to that. But here are some things that you should think about. When you do in Unity, you do your texture compression, orientation to left. That's an important build settings. Multi-threading, fixes stamp, and the anti-aliasing. And in Gear VR, you need, of course, to get your requirement. It's like a little file you have to drag and drop. It's a bit annoying, but those are build settings. But on the optimization, that becomes really important. Okay, and I should have showed those. Of course, when you start to talk about optimization, another thing is that you can directly link in Unity with your profile to see your performances. So that's really cool. You can play your game on the Samsung Gear VR, but still see your performance on your profile in the editor. Okay, the only thing you need 2 people, because one is in VR and one is outside. But of course you can record it and look afterwards, and that's where you're going to see your bottlenecks are. Okay, but here are some things I always say: keep your polygons low, between 50K to 100K. Keep them low at the moment. It's better to have bigger and nicer textures than better model. Why is that? Because nowadays, like in Samsung, you can on the device I used lately, you could put 1 gig in the memory for your textures. So use that instead of modeling it all, because it gets rendered 2 times. Do anything you reduce your pass draw calls, but more importantly, set pass calls. Why is that? In Unity, the difference between Unity 4 and Unity 5 is the set pass call. When you have a draw calls, it was updated every frame. That has changed in Unity 5. It's not updated every frame. There's things we transfer no over. The only thing that's transferred over is look at the set pass call number. That's the most important one there. And where you can find that, it's really simple here. When you in Unity press play, and the stats here, you see here, for instance, the batches is 37, but he said Pascal is in this time 37, because we optimize it really hardcore. But that's where you're going to have to look at. Bring that as much as possible down. Okay. Pooling, same techniques that if you used when you made games in the early 90s. Pooling is super important. Avoid CPU spikes. Put all your objects, if you can, put the static, because less RAM. Bake your light information so you don't have you have less draw calls. Okay. But the reason why you do that, you don't want to drop frames. That's the main thing. Okay. The moment you drop a frame, it's a bad experience. Okay, when you played a mobile game and maybe the frame rate went from 60 to 12, okay, you had a bad experiences. But in Gear VR or in Oculus, it's a really bad experience. It gives you nausea. It totally disconnects you with the game. And that is the problem. You don't want to get people get sick because you're never going to play the game anymore. Okay, and that's why a simple use maybe toon shaders. It doesn't have to be, like a nice example is here, the 2 games I want to show you is Sharp Drift, and it's already out now, where you actually play a bullet simulation. The game you walk forward, and you shoot a bullet and you can stop the game and then continue the game. Okay. Well, you see the game is totally in cartoonish style, but it totally works. A nice example is Alchemy Labs, who made Job Simulator. Try to play it. Hey, get an Oculus, download it. It's pretty awesome, but you see the hands are totally not realistic. But it works fully. The people are fully immersed with it and find it really fun. Okay. Use LODs, culling, batching. Use all those techniques to bring down the frame rate. Okay.
Bring down or up the frame
Bring up. Sorry. Yeah, I'm dreaming here. Yeah, if I would say bring down the frame rate, then we are in huge problems. Okay. But design advice, and that's always my most important one. There's a lot of devices on the market now, and even I go to Asia, I see more devices. But everybody's trying to find the golden grail of the input device. Okay. And this is something that we typically see. So when you start with the design, ask which input device you will use, because that has such an impact on your design. Don't start to design a game and then say, well, we're going to use that as an input device. Okay. And it's the same saying, if let's go to the forest, but then say, well, let's take a regular car instead of a Jeep. Well, you have to think about that. So I never had a great experience of having a full immersive VR on me and using a keyboard. It's not easy, it's difficult. It's the same when in the beginning we made our mobile games and we used fake touchpads on it, like joysticks. It doesn't work. Nobody has a great experience, gets frustrated. Okay. But there's two great input devices that I have a great experience with it. What would you say? What is your best input device?
Voice input.
Yeah, voice input and looking at it. That is the two best experience I have. With the Oculus, we did some tests. We had great with the voice input, phenomenal. When you say pick up or drop, it works, and that is something like I find that's where we should look at the possibility. Now the gaze cursor is already something available on the Samsung Gear VR. You just look at it, it locks down, and it knows. Those are two. Instead of using a keypad, try to avoid that as much as possible. And as I said, your neck is one of the most perfect looking devices. Look there, look there. Use that instead of a joystick if you can. Totally revamp your design. Now also what we see still is the design, keep it short, because the devices are not optimal yet for your brain or perfect. So keep them between 5 and 20 minutes, because nobody's going to pay much longer. It just starts to be hard on the eye or difficult. Okay, I have to admit I've played sometimes for 2 hours straight, but I don't think it's not so healthy for my mind. And Rob Pardo, we became friends over time. It's a very interesting character who I actually designed World of Warcraft. He was involved in Hearthstone. And one of the first things he said to me, never design a game and then literally port it over. Hey, don't do that. It's better you start from scratch and design it for the device. And we have tons of examples of games that were taken to mobile but never became successful. Big titles who were on other platforms but never made it on mobile. And sometimes you're wondering, why is that? Well, because the input scheme didn't work. It has to be totally redesigned. Okay. And another thing was with the Gear VR, and that was a very nice example, is there is no cables. When I gave the Oculus to my daughter, who's 6 years old, she knows it's a cable, so she knows she's been told you have to watch out, and she does this. Okay, but the Gear VR, there's no cable, and the first thing people do is they look around. So if you make a hidden treasure game, or a game where you have to explore, think about designing the back end. It's not just about the front, because imagine we turn around and you see just black. Oh, it's pretty boring, the game. So you have to think about that. You're going to use everything. Another thing that I also really want to point out is the design. In Unity, when you use a splash screen, it's not stereoscopic set by default. So if you submit an app to the Samsung Gear VR store, you will be refused because your logo is not stereoscopic. So either make a stereoscopic logo or put it to black. It's better to be accepted than to be refused. Okay. Now if you start to use buttons, everybody wants to make buttons, and that's where we come from, our nature, but I always say try to avoid it. But we have to, you have to say start or click or that. Put those buttons in your game 1 or 2 units away from you. And in Unity it's really simple, one square is 1 meter. Put it away, 2 meters. The reason is when you bring it close, it's really hard because it's long, it's too much perspective. If you put it further, then you lose perspective. The human eye is really conditioned in that range of that being optical for perspective. Okay. Now, if you make a button, what I've seen sometimes with the games I play, they make a very long button. What you have to do, you have to read it from left to right, or from right to left, depends on your language. But what happens is you have to read it, you have to find it. Make sure that the buttons are in your, hold it in your viewport so you can see them one shot. Okay, and that helps a lot too. Now, what I also had experienced sometimes is when they press pause in the game. What happens? They pause the camera. Okay, you would think it's normal. That's what we do. But what happens is when they press pause, and you look around and the camera is fixed, you're gonna be very fast dizzy. So when you press pause, don't pause everything. Pause the gameplay, but don't pause the camera. Don't pause maybe the moving of the trees or the sounds, because you still immerse it. You are actually in the VR just saying, stop the gameplay. Don't stop fully the game. That is a huge difference what we're doing with mobile games. Okay. So remember, if you press pause, keep on going all the interaction, but stop the gameplay. But make sure you can still look around to the camera, or others your players will easily fall flat on the ground. Depends on you want that. Okay. Okay, this is a long text, but in short, it came from the Oculus manual. I found it very interesting. Okay. As I was a consultant on one of a game who's coming out very soon in VR, but they were standing still and they were defending a tower defense game in an area. But then they went to the next level, and the next level was in a car. Well, your body has a really difficult experience of, I'm standing in this place, and in 1 second I win, I'm in another location. It's a shock for your brain. So it's better just when you transition from a certain area to another area, or from one level to another level, just do a little fade to black and go there. Then your brain can understand it. Okay, I'm here, let's pause a little bit. Oh, I'm now here, I'm transitioning. Just helps with the brain, because you want your players to play the game. You don't want them to leave the game very fast. Okay. So a nice example is also, I played a game and that was very good done. Instead of the lives, like you had 3 lives. And what we see a lot, we see like the icons on the screen of your lives. No, what they didn't do that. What they did, they integrated. It was a tower defense game, and you had a wall here, and the enemy was coming. But what they did, on the wall, they had 3 little dolls, and real. And each time you lose a life, the doll fell over. That is fully integrating in VR like this, because you don't walk here around with 3 icons on your eye projected. Okay, and that is really immersing and using the VR how it is. The same is like for ammo, another game I played. The ammo was not a bar, but the ammo was a counter on the device itself integrated. So when you look around, it nicely follows but makes it real to it. And when you put those buttons, when you put 3D, and that's really interesting also, the core, if you want nice perspective, keep it between like 1 meter and 2 meters, or a yard to 2 yards, or 3 yards or something. That's our eyes really focus there on seeing the 3D perspective, because if you go much further, it becomes more flat. It doesn't matter then so much. Another thing I found really interesting, I have an art background, and I studied a long time about the painters of Vermeer's, the painter of light. It's a pure flat painting, but when you look at it, oh my God, it's so 3D when you sit in front of it. Why is that? Because they understand the lighting, they understand composition, put an object in front, put an object in background. Your skill as a photographer really come back in place there. Because it's not just putting 3D objects in a 3D environment and make it look 3D, like, okay, here's 3D now. No, but if you put nicer lighting in it, with the shadows in there, understanding how to bring out that 3D, then it comes much more out than just placing it in there. Okay. Another thing that I learned over time was bright images. And that also came out the manual of Oculus. Don't put flickering images or really bright images as a surprise, because for people who have epilepsy, it doesn't work so good, the game then. Okay, try to think about that. But also, it's more processing for your brains. It's harder to process that. Now, if you have a crosshair, like you want to look at something, and that was, I found really interesting when I played some of the games on the Samsung Gear VR, is you look at a certain distance, and the further it is you look, the crosshair becomes smaller. If you look to an object close by, the crosshair becomes bigger. That means you're integrating that object in 3D in your environment, and it becomes more real. When you look, okay, it's bigger, it's further. So it gives you also a sense of depth. but it doesn't give that object just floating in front of you who's annoying and disturbing. Okay. Now, another thing was, and that's what I had a problem with, is unflat surfaces or unexpectedly vertical acceleration. Okay. 2 examples I want to give you on that. I was playing a little game where you drive a car. Okay, I'm sitting down and you go forward. But what they did was they made a bumpy terrain. Well, I'm sitting on the chair, but my brain is saying you're going non-stop up and down. I can tell you, man, after a few minutes, you're totally sick. My worst experience, but what was also the funny one, was a fake horse. I'm sitting and you go like this, and then unexpectedly, the horse dives 30 meters down. Wow. Look, I've done acrobation airplane flying, but that experience was for me unexpectedly totally sick. Okay. So I said, don't forget, the players will also grab the device, stand up, and look around. And think about when you design about that. And a nice example was in a Hidden Treasure game. They made the game first in 3D on the screen, and they look around in their software. And in the software, it looks like, oh, it's pretty cluttered and it looks full. But the moment they put it on in 3D, it's like real life. Oh yeah, oh, the board is missing of the wall. There has to be more chairs. So don't look just on the 3D screen, but really look everything when you design and 3D on it. So think about that. Another thing is, some people want to be very artistic, and that's really great. What they do is they scale the left eye and the right eye. No go. You create a very discomforting image, and you become very fast sick. I've seen it. People want to do funky things, but think about that. Okay. No, the first scene is not only the way to go in third person. Blah 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 blah. Everybody can read faster than me. But what I mean with that is, in the beginning, I saw in the VR a lot of first-person games, where they walk around, okay, or a third-person game, basically, they walk around and shoot. Well, actually, you're standing still and you're telling your body you're moving around. I had a lot more fun in games where I'm actually the god, when I'm looking to the environment around me and I'm standing still and I'm commanding others what to do. That is a lot more fun, or a tower defense game where I'm standing still and just rotating, because that is a similar experience as my body. Okay, that's what I personally, that's what I have more fun with.
Cool.
No,
I want to be mindful of time. We have
okay.
1 minute left.
Oh,
so if you want to breeze through.
Yeah. So when it's about money, think about this is an early adoption market. There are no stores. There's no hardware really available to say for mass money making. But where you can actually make money is make a game and work with partners that fund your game or make something unique that really push you. They want to have the game on their device. No examples. I'm not going to go through it because I have to go. But I tell you, man, keep talking and nobody explodes. Tonight when you go home, buy the game and play it with your partner. You're going to have a lot of fun, but a lot of arguments too. Because you have to defuse a bomb and the other person has the manual. And the person who's in the VR doesn't have a manual. The manual is a person who is not in VR. So you have to communicate and defuse a bomb, and the fight starts there. So I have to wrap up, but I want to thank you, and I'm going to be outside for questions. Don't forget to go to the Unity forums if you want to learn more about it. Go to the Oculus forums. But also there's a lot of user groups from Unity and VR user groups. We will be also at VR LA in August 29th there with the whole staff, and then for asking questions, feel free to come by. Or if you made a game with VR, please send me a link. I'd love to see that too. So I want to thank you, and I will talk to you outside because I think he's about to kill me. Okay.
Everybody, please thank Carl. Lots of great information in there.